Here's a hidden book that reshapes how we understand some of the oldest stories ever told. It's called the Book of Jubilees, and inside, it reveals a completely different angle on Cain's jealousy, the behavior of angels, and even who really followed God's laws first. In this video, we're diving headfirst into the secrets of this ancient text. Some consider it scripture, others say it's too controversial. But one thing's for sure, it changes everything. Often referred to as the Lesser Genesis, the Book of Jubilees is an ancient Jewish work with deep theological layers. Though left out of most modern Bibles, it's a key part of the canon for the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, and its teachings trace back to Moses himself, according to tradition. Most scholars date it to somewhere between the 2nd and 1st centuries BCE. Its author, likely a priest with a deep commitment to the laws of the Torah, looking to reinterpret Genesis and Exodus through an ultra-strict legal lens. It was originally written in Hebrew, but today, the full text survives mostly in Ge'ez, Greek, and Latin, thanks to discoveries like the Dead Sea Scrolls. Unlike the Bible's progressive unfolding of laws through Moses, the Book of Jubilees claims the earliest figures, Adam, Noah, Abraham, already followed strict commandments. It reimagines history by dividing it into Jubilees, 49-year cycles, and lines up major biblical events along this sacred timeline. This version of history leans heavily on celestial order. According to Jubilees, all of humanity's story is written in advance, on heavenly tablets, and revealed to Moses by angels. This is a key shift. While the Bible emphasizes free will and moral choices, Jubilees presents a universe where every action is already mapped out by divine design. Angels take center stage in this narrative. They're not just messengers, they're lawgivers, teachers, and even enforcers. One angel, known as the Angel of the Presence, dictates the entire book to Moses atop Mount Sinai. Events like the flood and the binding of Isaac? Jubilees says angels had a direct hand in them. It's a stark contrast from the Bible, where God usually interacts with humanity directly. Now here's where it gets even more dramatic. The story of Cain and Abel. Most of us were taught that Cain killed Abel out of pure jealousy. God favored Abel's offering. But Jubilees adds a whole new dimension. It claims the brothers fought over a sister they were both supposed to marry. Cain felt robbed. It wasn't just envy. It was personal. Suddenly, this ancient murder reads more like a tragic family drama than a simple case of rejected sacrifice. The Book of Jubilees also expands on the mysterious Nephilim, giants born from fallen angels and human women. These beings corrupted humanity so deeply that their existence triggered the Great Flood. While Genesis gives this story just a few lines, Jubilees turns it into a central myth, aligning closely with the Book of Enoch. The narrative here feels more ancient, more mythic, almost like something out of an epic. Even Noah's story gets a rewrite. After the flood, he's portrayed as receiving not just a covenant, but a set of detailed laws. Dietary rules, sacrificial instructions, Sabbath observance. Noah is no longer just a survivor. He's a proto-priest. The Bible, by contrast, keeps things simple. A rainbow, a few core instructions, and a fresh start. Jubilees pushes the idea that the law was always present, not introduced later, but embedded in creation itself. Abraham isn't just the man of faith. He's a devout lawkeeper who smashes his father's idols and lives in total obedience before God even calls him. His test with Isaac also changes. Satan is introduced as the one who orchestrates the trial, and Sarah's fear and grief play a major role. It becomes a cosmic test with spiritual warfare in the background, not just a personal sacrifice of trust. One of the most radical moves Jubilees makes is rewriting the biblical timeline to fit its Jubilee calendar. Events are dated down to the exact year, like saying the flood occurred precisely 1,756 years after creation. This rigid structure creates an entirely new chronological view of sacred history, one that doesn't always line up with the traditional Bible. And then there's its stance on intermarriage. Jubilees treats it as a major sin, tied directly to spiritual corruption. It goes much harder than the Bible does. While biblical texts like Deuteronomy warn against certain intermarriages, we also see examples like Ruth and Rahab, outsiders brought into God's family. Jubilees doesn't leave room for that kind of grace. It doubles down on purity and separation. This strict legalism, combined with heavy angelic involvement and predetermined fate, gives Jubilees a tone that's both mystical and rigid. It paints a world governed by eternal rules written in the stars, not evolving covenants or flexible morality. One of the most compelling things about the Book of Jubilees is how it redefines the role of divine law in human history. In this version of reality, laws weren't just handed down to Moses on stone tablets. They were always there, embedded in creation, followed by the patriarchs long before Sinai. Adam is said to have kept the Sabbath from the very beginning. Noah not only avoids blood and makes sacrifices, but teaches his sons to do the same. Abraham follows a full system of dietary and worship laws, decades before Moses is even born. This reshapes our entire view of obedience, suggesting that the law isn't a covenant for a chosen people, but an eternal order, universal and unchanging. This raises deep theological questions. If the law always existed, what does that say about God's relationship with humanity? Is history about evolving revelation or rediscovery of something already written? The Book of Jubilees answers that by pointing to the heavenly tablets, divine records that hold the timeline of everything, laws, judgments, destinies. These tablets aren't symbolic, they're literal within the story. Moses reads from them. Angels follow them. Every major event on earth is said to have already been written. This takes the idea of God's sovereignty to a whole new level. It isn't just that God knows the future. He has already authored every chapter. Free will in this framework starts to blur. It's not about choosing a path, but fulfilling one that was predetermined long before birth. And yet, the stories themselves feel deeply personal. When Jubilees tells us that Abraham smashed his father's idols, it reframes him as a bold revolutionary, not just a man of faith, but a man of conviction and action, someone who stood against the religious corruption of his time. The book also gives Sarah a voice in the story of Isaac's near sacrifice, showing her grief, fear, and emotional turmoil. These human touches add layers to familiar stories, making them more raw and relatable. Another striking feature is how Jubilees expands on spiritual warfare. Satan, absent in many Old Testament stories, plays a direct role here, tempting, testing, and accusing. The presence of supernatural beings isn't just background noise, it's central to the drama. There's a cosmic battle always happening just behind the scenes. Even the binding of Isaac becomes a multi-layered trial. Not just Abraham being tested by God, but Satan trying to twist the outcome. It creates tension not only between faith and obedience, but between divine will and demonic opposition. This cosmic lens stretches into the origin stories too, especially with the Watchers and the Nephilim. In Genesis, they're briefly mentioned. In Jubilees, they're a full-on storyline. Angels rebel, giants are born, humanity spirals into violence and corruption. And the flood? It's not just about human wickedness, it's divine cleanup of a supernatural mess. Jubilees gives the flood a sense of cosmic urgency. It isn't just resetting the earth, it's cleansing it of a spiritual infection. And after it all, Noah isn't left to guess. He's given rituals, laws, and even a written book of healing taught by angels to guide him and his descendants. The law is everywhere, not just in commandments, but in stories, rituals, and traditions, passed down from generation to generation. Jubilees insists that true obedience was always the path, even before it was formally introduced in Scripture. This viewpoint influenced later Jewish thought, especially among groups like the Essenes, who preserved Jubilees among the Dead Sea Scrolls. Its emphasis on purity, ritual, and strict law echoed their worldview. And while most Christian and Jewish traditions don't include Jubilees in their canon, its impact lingers. Its ideas shaped apocalyptic writings, legal traditions, and even early Christian theology. The Book of Jubilees isn't just a retelling, it's a total reframing. It takes familiar stories and pulls back the curtain, revealing a version of history where laws are eternal, angels are architects, and destiny is already written in the stars. Its additions may feel shocking, even controversial, but they're deliberate. Every expanded detail, every cosmic element, every stricter law pushes a single message: that nothing in this world is random, that the divine order is deeper, older, and more structured than we ever imagined. For those who accept Jubilees, it offers clarity. For others, it challenges core beliefs. But either way, it demands attention, not just for what it says, but for how boldly it rewrites what we thought we knew. From Cain and Abel to the Nephilim, from heavenly tablets to eternal law, the Book of Jubilees is a window into a world where the spiritual realm isn't far away. It's right here, shaping everything. And whether you see it as sacred or speculative, one thing's clear. Once you've read its pages, you'll never look at the Bible the same way again. If you enjoyed this and want to dive deeper into the Book of Jubilees, hit that like button. Want part 2? Let us know by typing P2 in the comments below, and we'll bring it to life.